Before we get into this special weekend edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com.
As we head toward another local election season here in the Upstate, voters in Spartanburg County will soon be hearing from candidates who want to help shape the future of the community. One of those candidates is William Crawford, a Boiling Springs resident, business owner, father of two boys in public school, who says he wants to bring a business-minded approach, more transparency, stronger fiscal discipline to county government. William, good to have you on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joey.
So let's just start with your story. You're a resident of Boiling Springs, husband, father of two boys. Tell our listeners a little about your background, what life looks like for your family in Spartanburg County.
Yes, sir. So I grew up on a small farm as a boy, and had an opportunity to go to Clemson. Dated my wife and I are high school sweethearts. Dated, got married. Moved to Charleston, but realized when we wanted to have children, we wanted to be closer to family and more of the values that we held dear in the Upstate. And found Bowling Springs as home, and been calling that home for 20 years now. That's really where I consider growing up, because that's the only home my boys have ever known. And then, I really grew up there, started my business here in Bowling Springs, and just it is a bigger part of my life than I could ever imagine 20 years later.
Yeah. So why now? What made you decide to jump into politics at this point?
Fresh leadership, Joey. We are, we hear a lot about what's going on in D.C. and we hear about Columbia, but local government has such a huge impact on our day-to-day lives. And, over the last several years, just watching council and watching the direction that we're headed as a county, one of the fastest growing counties and the fastest growing state. We've got to have a vision and be prepared for that growth and channel it in a way that keeps the county recognizable and affordable. I want my kids to grow up here and have that same love for the county and community and move here. Ultimately, I want my grandkids to be just right down the street. So I want to make a home county for them that they want to continue to call home after they leave our house.
Yeah. Now, you have mentioned that you would like to bring a business-minded approach to county government. William, talk with us about what that actually looks like in practice when it comes to budgeting and day-to-day operations of the county.
Well, as a small business owner, you're the last one paid, right? And the things that keep you up at night are making sure that you are planning ahead, making sure your employees are relying on you to make sure that their paychecks are cashed and can be cashed, and then of course the government's counting on you too. And so you have that fiscal mindset of just making your dollar go as far as possible. And I really want to ask, and as a business owner, you're oftentimes asking those hard questions about how you spend money, why you spend money on certain things, and then how that what the actual outcome is, what the deliverables are on that money spent. And I want to ask those same questions in our county government.
Yeah. You've also emphasized transparency, building trust between the voters, the citizens of Spartanburg and Spartanburg County government. Do you think that trust has broken down in the past or even presently? And what specific changes would you make to rebuild that?
Yeah, I think the challenge is getting the information out to the public, to our taxpayers, and just making sure we're doing that in a consistent manner where our people who have questions know where to go to get those answers, and then just conveying the message on a consistent basis out to the public. Transparency is key, and anything that we're spending your hard-earned tax dollars on, we need to be able to disclose how we're doing that, especially if we're bringing something to a public vote or having a public discussion around it. And so I think it's just important to have that consistency so people know where to get the information. And then I think the transparency piece is really more of us taking the step to really be the first out there to talk about what we're doing for you, the taxpayer.
Yeah. William Crawford is my guest today. He will be running for Spartanburg County Council. Now, William, of course, filing has not opened yet. That'll be coming in just another week or so. So you're not officially a candidate, but you are making it known that you will be filing and running, right?
Yes, sir. I am filing for the chairman's position, which is the only county-wide position on Spartanburg County Council.
Let's talk a bit about something that anybody who pays taxes and lives in the county, and that's, of course, spending. You've said that you want to control county spending and avoid new taxes. Where do you believe the county could tighten its belt?
Well, I think it really requires you to be in there to ask those questions and start working through how we spend money as a county to find those moments of clarity around that. But, it's really refocusing away from any type of projects that's not a core function of local government, I believe is where you really start, and you start asking those hard questions. We've got to have those basic deliverables. As the county grows, the population's growing, we've got to make sure we have support for our first responders. Even if you think through our court systems and our probate courts, as people move in, there's a bigger strain on those departments and resources, and we just want to make sure that we're putting the taxpayer first with those, and then looking if we're wanting to have other projects, those have to come after the core government functions.
Yeah. You also, one of your ideas is conducting a full audit of county operations, looking at what the county does and what the county doesn't do. What prompted that idea, and what do you think such a review might uncover?
Yeah, so first of all, I do want to say a full audit is not a statement of distrust by anyone. I think if you're going to step into a leadership role, and if you're going to step into being accountable to the taxpayers, you've got to know where the money's being spent. You've got to have an understanding of how the county operates. So I think the key there for saying that we're going to do an audit, because as most people will come back and say, well, we do an audit every year. That's part of government. You're required to do an audit. And I really think the audit is more of being able to ask the questions of how the money's being spent, so we can understand, are we getting the most efficient spend there? What a process that is 20 years old may have inefficiencies now with new technology or new ways to look at it? Are there redundancies within departments where we are spending money with two different departments kind of running separate but looking at the same items? Just to get a good understanding, I think you've got to have an understanding of where you stand before you can really paint a clear picture of where you want to be.
Yeah, my guest today, William Crawford, will be running for chairman of Spartanburg County Council. You've also said that one of your priorities is just to simply ask hard questions. Give us an example of the kind of questions you believe county leaders should be asking right now.
Yeah, so asking those hard questions. We talked a little bit about the audit earlier. Having to learn, get your kind of ground game together to be able to ask those questions and why we're doing what we're doing. Some of those hard questions are going to be around growth. Obviously, it's one of the fastest growing counties in the state. We don't have a good benchmark to compare ourselves to. We're on the leading edge of that growth. So asking real hard questions about, our plans of how the county should grow. By no means, it's un-American to tell somebody that you how to necessarily what you can and can't do with property, but there's got to be some sort of plan in place as a county to where we don't have just haphazard growth everywhere you turn with a subdivision next to a commercial building and things of those nature. So ask the questions, learning that, putting we have comprehensive studies out there looking at the renewal of the comprehensive studies and really applying those comprehensive studies to the ordinances and putting things in place that will take us into the next 10 years of the county.
Yeah. You mentioned growth a couple of times. And, of course, with growth comes challenges, infrastructure, roads, development, the services that the county provides. If you're elected chairman of Spartanburg County Council, what should county leaders be doing to manage that growth responsibly? And do you think that they've done a good job thus far?
Yes, I'm sure growth is on the listeners' minds. I mean, you talk to anyone in Spartanburg County, and there's discussion of the growth. I personally believe that the county administration, and we've done a framework to try to get an understanding, but I think the transparency piece of how our growth plan looks, what our vision is there, and understanding, you can't stop all growth, but you've got to do it in a way that's respectful and responsible. You want to make sure the county looks, it's recognizable and affordable for generations to come. So having those plans in place, I don't feel that the county council has handled that in the best way. At minimum, at least be talking about projects that you haven't approved or why those projects have been approved and what you're expecting to see in different parts of the county. Really getting out and listening to the taxpayer, I think, is a big miss there. Oftentimes, you're not hearing that people are being heard, and I think that goes a long ways to have plans in place to execute on growth plans that the majority of people can understand and respect.
William Crawford is on our guest line today. One of the issues that we just recently dealt with was the proposal of a data center in Spartanburg. It looks like that project is probably not going to happen now, but talk with us about your thoughts on future data centers.
Sure. Yes, that's been a hot topic, and there's a lot of different thoughts on that. I look at it from an economic development standpoint. You're the kind of you're standing in the doorway of economic development as a representative on county council. You have to ask those questions of what these projects look like as they're being presented, and really dig in. One of the major concerns I had just right off the top of my head, just as a general citizen, hearing about the amount of money that's being invested in data centers right now. It's almost like the new gold rush, if you will. And unfortunately, we all know what happens in those situations. There's going to be winners and losers. And making sure that we are asking those questions as a council to make sure that our county government, our taxpayers, are not one of those losers. And the idea of giving a 40-year incentive to technology, Joey, you and I both know home computers were not a common thing 40 years ago. I'm not sure if data centers will be a common thing in 40 years from now. And just kind of asking those questions. And I think I don't want to say no to any type of development. I think what's important is looking at it on a case to case. How does it fit the community? How does it serve the community? And is it something that gives back to us in a responsible way that the citizens can feel comfortable with? I think are the key questions there. And I think with the most recent data center, there was so many unknowns. There's no way you could feel comfortable getting behind the project like that.
Yeah. Is there a scenario that you could support a project like that?
Sure. I mean, I think that if you had a company that come in that wanted to be a partner in the community and really had a strong vision of how they were going to maintain their presence in the community and be a partner to the community, and also in a area where the citizens were comfortable of having that placed, absolutely. I think you have to be open. Last thing you want to do as part of making sure you're responsible with government and keeping the residents' taxes low is continuing to look at your industrial base and your commercial base to grow that in order to keep the property taxes on houses affordable for residents. So I think every deal has to be looked at individual, and what that partner brings to the county is the key there.
Yeah. William,
and of course, in a safety way. I want to make sure that it's safe for our citizens.
Right. If voters elect to send you or elect you as chairman of county council, what's one change or improvement that you'd most like people to see in Spartanburg County over the next 4 years?
I want people to be able to walk away and say, look, we can see what has been accomplished by our county council. A county that has embraced future and understands that change is going to happen, but also respecting the heritage of the communities throughout. I think what's really important on county council is to recognize, as Spartanburg County, we've got to understand what your local towns and your unincorporated areas, what their visions for their individual areas look like. I mean, we've got beautiful county here, all the way from mountains to rivers, and a lot to enjoy. And there's different points of pride throughout the county. So making sure that those are still there for people to love the heritage and history of their community, and then just being in a community that is working together on the future good for the county.
Yep. William, appreciate your time today, and hey, we'll be watching the race and check back with you maybe later in the spring.
Absolutely. I look forward to being with you again. Thank you.
Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. You know, one of the rights Americans hold dear is the right to protect themselves and their families. In South Carolina, that often means obtaining a concealed weapons permit or other types of gun safety. Carrying a firearm comes with responsibility. You need training. You need to understand the law. That's why I'm glad to welcome Doug Lawson to the program today. Doug is a certified instructor who spends his time helping people understand not only how to safely handle a firearm, but also the legal responsibilities that comes with carrying one. Doug, glad to have you today.
Thanks, Joey. Glad to be on.
So let's start with sort of the basics here, because I think that there's still some confusion in South Carolina as far as the CWP, if it's required, and just, you know, when you can carry your gun, can you have it concealed, where can you take it? So just kind of clear that up for us and give us an update on the status of CWP and constitutional carry.
Okay. Well, of course, you know, we did pass constitutional carry, which also allows you to open carry in the state. I recommend anybody who is going to travel have a CWP. I keep mine all the time up to date, because it's just really good when you're traveling, of course, because there's a lot of states that have constitutional carry, but you don't live in that state, so they may not recognize you, especially being an out-of-state person. So it comes in very good for traveling. And it's also very good, you know, when you go to pick up your firearm or your suppressor, anything gun-related, it helps. It shows the staff there at the shop, okay, hey, you know, this guy's good. You know, you still have to fill out the forms, but the process is a whole lot faster. And also, when you get pulled over and you hand it to the law enforcement and you say, yes, I am traveling with a gun, or yes, I do have a gun on me, here is my permit, you know, gun is at blah, 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 you know, depending on what side you are, or if you have it in the case, you know, and normally 9 times out of 10, law enforcement will treat you a whole lot better, because they know, hey, this guy is, or this gal is, you know, they have a CVP. They're not going to pull their gun out on me and shoot me.
Yeah. As far as where you can carry, even with a CWP, there's still restrictions on where you can take your firearm. Kind of go over that with us as well.
Yes. Unfortunately, there are a lot of restrictions. And, you know, we saw about, I believe, a week or so ago what happened in Texas. You know, it's in a bar, you're not allowed to carry in a bar, because if you consume alcohol while carrying, that's committing a felony. So there's just a lot of places. And, of course, there's businesses, and certain businesses, they have the right to post sign. And if the signage, you know, it says no carry allowed here, you know, depending on the way, because it has to be worded a certain way, and it has to be the certain type of picture as well. And if it's not, it's technically, and if you use air quotes here, it's not technically correct by law. So, but unfortunately, federal buildings, banks, places like that, you're not allowed to carry steel. Certain venues, it's unfortunately you can be handcuffed, knowing, hey, I really like to protect my family. Especially unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of malls left. My generation will be probably the last that knows about a mall. Everybody likes to shop online now,
Mm-hmm.
but even going to the mall here in Greenville, you're not allowed to carry in there because there's not signage on certain doors, but when you actually walk into the mall, actually from one of the stores, there's these signs up that don't allow you to carry. So, unfortunately, it's a shooting gallery in there.
Yeah. Doug, if someone who's listening today may be considering getting their concealed weapons permit, walk us through the basic process. I mean, how does that look in South Carolina now?
In South Carolina, you have a written test and you have a shooting test. You have to pass both. A lot of people, normally they'll do the written test first. The instructors will do that first, and then they will do the shooting test afterwards. Because if you don't pass the written, you can't take the shooting. So that's just one thing they like to do. That way, you're not wasting a lot of ammo, because ammunition, unfortunately, is not cheap. Now, I do know some instructors that do supply guns, and a lot of people will go and do the class, and they'll take a gun that they're not going to carry.
Yeah.
I highly recommend taking the gun or the caliber that you are going to carry with you every day, and shoot. Now, when I did it, I'd have to say at least 10 plus years ago, I went out with a full size 1911 because that's just what I had at the time. So I shot a 45, and a lot of other people there were shooting 22 revolvers or 38 specials.
Yeah.
So, and that's just, you can get a good clean score that way, especially shooting a 22, because there's no recoil, but that's not testing you. You should be shooting comfortably with the ammunition you're going to carry. Now, that doesn't mean you go to the class and you bring out your hollow points and you're shooting that. No, you just need to take ball ammunition and shoot that. You don't need to be burning through highly expensive defense carry ammo at a class or getting your license.
Yep. Doug Lawson is our guest today. Doug, you've trained a lot of people over the years. What are the most common misconceptions people may have about carrying a concealed firearm?
Misconceptions. They're probably wondering, if, especially when it comes to printing and things like that. They're like, "Oh, somebody's going to see me carry my gun and they're gonna point me out." Can that happen? Yes. Does it happen really? No, because the way people dress around your gun, I carry a few different ways depending on where I'm going. I'm a big fan of what's called off-body carry. I actually have a bag made by Vertex, which allows me to carry off-body. It looks just like a fanny pack, and I have it strapped actually as like a shoulder pack to me. And I can swing it around and pull my firearm out from there. And it's actually a pretty sized gun with 17-round capacity, plus I have another 17-round mag in me. But, just walking around, you would never know that there was a gun in there. So I think a lot of people are, they're concerned about maybe the way they carry or how they dress, how they carry. You shouldn't really have to worry about too much, because I think where we live here in this area, and of course in this demographic down here, that's not really an issue. Of course, in some states it will be, because there's unfortunately some blue states are crazy with their laws, and people are, let's just be honest, they're going to freak out if they see anything that they might risk some of them getting shot.
Yeah.
So, and they don't know that this person is legally allowed to have and own a firearm.
Sure. Now, safety is obviously a big part of what you teach as well. What are the most important safety principles that every gun owner should understand before they even think about carrying a gun?
Well, one is always treat all guns as if they are loaded. That's probably the golden rule. Always treat a gun as if it was loaded. It doesn't matter if you've checked it or not. You should always treat a gun as if it's loaded. Of course, never pointing the gun at anything you don't want to destroy. Also, I would also say, some people are concerned about, carrying a firearm with children around. And I have that discussion with a lot of female shooters. They're like, I'm afraid to carry my gun with my children around. I'm like, well, this is when you start teaching children at an age, hey, you don't touch this. This is mommy's,
Yeah.
this is daddy's. If you see one, don't touch it. Come get me or come get an adult. And it's also when it comes to women carrying firearms, a lot of them don't want to carry on their person because they're afraid their child might grab it, or they don't want to carry in their purse. I recommend if you are going to carry on your person, just make sure you have a good quality holster, one that you are sure that your child cannot have access to. Plus, it also comes with training them saying, hey, don't touch mommy or don't touch daddy here. And this is why. And the good thing about with females, when it comes to a purse, is what I tell a lot of them. If you have the right, of course, most purses, they make concealed carry purses now that have pockets in them for women to carry. So, and it has a slight little zipper or some release tabs for you to stick your hand in there and get it. So unless the child knows it's there, you're not gonna have the issue. And I always tell ladies, your purse is replaceable. You and your child is not. So the good thing with most purses, and a lot of ladies love to carry a revolver, I said, you can hold your purse and fire your gun through your purse, protecting you and your children, and your purse, you can always just replace your purse.
Yeah. Doug Lawson is with us today, and we're talking about gun safety, things that you should be aware of as far as getting your concealed weapons permit. Doug, we often hear about situational awareness. How much of your training focuses on avoiding conflict rather than responding to it?
It's really a lot. I try to tell people, and I like to explain, the last thing you want to do is to pull your firearm to defend yourself. And the firearm should be your last go-to. If you have a feeling that something don't seem right, leave. If you're walking and you see somebody following you, immediately pull your phone out, start making a phone call. Or most phones have SOS signals on them now where you can press the buttons and it automatically sends SOS where it's silent and it alerts law enforcement. But you should always be scanning, always be looking. And I know with children that can be hard, but you should always be looking around. You just, I do it Sundays at church, and I will always be looking because do we have good security at our church? Absolutely. We have officers there and everything, but that doesn't mean somebody won't slip in because they know that 90% of the time, even if the police are there, they can get off a few rounds inside a building before the law enforcement comes through the doors to get them. So you should always be scanning, looking around. And again, if something doesn't seem right, feel right, try to leave the situation, defend yourself at all costs. And if you need to use your firearm, use it.
Yeah. I think there's often people aren't quite sure of when and where they can use their firearm in defense. Talk with us about that a bit. I mean, obviously, if someone comes into your home and they're in your home, you're justified in using that. But what if they're in your yard and they're not inside your home? Where's that line begin and end?
Well, we do have the Castle Doctrine here in South Carolina. So if you are basically backed up to a wall and you have no retreat, you are allowed to defend. You are allowed to defend yourself. But that doesn't mean you stand on your front porch and you shoot at somebody, in your yard, several yards away. The last time you should even think about doing anything like that, especially on your property, is if you're in the woods and you have no retreat. You cannot get to your vehicle. You cannot get to a place where you can retreat from the situation. That's like I said, it's your last line of defense.
Yep.
But yeah, because I've had law enforcement say, if they're in your house, do it. Just make sure. I had a law enforcement officer tell me one time, he could have been kidding, but he's like, if you do shoot somebody and they fall outside your door, you need to pull them back in your house, which I know he's kidding, but you should never do that. You should never touch a crime scene. But if someone is in your house, you want to try, unfortunately, finish the job within the house. But if they were to get out and run, and they've been shot, 9 times out of 10, we know these people are going to try to get to the hospital or try to get somewhere safe. And that's when you do have law enforcement involved then when that has happened.
Right. Doug Lawson's my guest. So Doug, someone has already gone to training, they have their permit, but that's when the work really begins, because you don't just get your permit and file it away. 5 years down the road, 7, 8, 10 years down the road, you still need to stay current. You need to practice and be proficient with your gun. There are a lot of great organizations. I know you're really involved in the United States Practical Shooting Association. Talk with us about some of the local opportunities that people have here in the Upstate to be with a group of like-minded individuals and to continue to get that practice and that training.
Yes, we do have the USPSA along with IDPA, but I shoot USPSA. I've been shooting it since 2016, and USPSA was kind of the brainchild of one of the pistol doctorants from back in the day of Mr. Jeff Cooper. People can do research on him and find out that he was a really, really good instructor, retired military, very, very good man. But USPSA is actually really good, not only for training, but it's also good as a sport. And that's really what it's designed as. It's designed as a sport, but you can get good training, even though I don't like to call it training, because a lot of people say, well, people aren't shooting back at you. I'm like, well, you know what? You have to have that process, that think process. But with USPSA, there's several ranges here in the Upstate. There's one at the Clinton House there's also one in Belton. We have a one up in Lake Lure. Rainbow Gun Club, I believe, does them too, but they mainly do what's called a 2-gun, which is also involves rifle. But when you go to a USPSA event, you're going to find probably some of the most friendliest people you've ever met. Everybody is always there to make everybody better. And when you get there, what I like to tell people, if they really think about wanting to get into the sport, is you need to come to a match and just hang out for the day. We're not gonna make fun of you. We want you there because we want you to learn. We want sport to grow. We have a lot of juniors that do this sport also, but it's good training wise, because when you're there, there's normally, if you go to a standard weekend local, there's about 6, maybe 7 stages, and one stage is called a classifier. Well, a classifier basically is your shooting score. It's basically like a report card. So how fast you shoot it in, and your points per stage, your points on that classifier will determine, okay, does this person fall in a grandmaster, best of the best? Does he fall in master class? Is he an A-class shooter, B-class, C, or D? But until you're classified, you're considered a U-class shooter, so you're unclassified. There's tons of divisions in USPSA, everything from production level, which is basically out-of-the-box gun. You can do a little bit of stuff to it here and there, and all the rules are on the USPSA website and in the handbook. Then you move to, which is probably 2 of the most competitive divisions right now in USPSA, which is the carry optics division and the limited optics division. The only difference in the 2 is the limited optics division allows what's called single action only guns. So like 1911s, 2011s, guns of that nature. Carry optics was born from production, and they originally was just guns that were allowed to put dots on them. Well, there's more leeway with that. They allow certain weights and certain things to be done on certain guns in that division, but in limited optics, you can have a little bit more. And then there's single set division, which for what we call classic, which is for guys that like to shoot the 1911. We have revolver division, and watching people shoot revolver, there's not a lot of many of them left. The great Jerry Michalik from Smith & Wesson is probably the best revolver person that has ever lived. I've had a chance to meet him several times. He's a really nice fella. Those guys are fun to watch. And then you have what's called open division, and that's the race cars. That's the guys with the drag cars. These guns go fast. They're loud. But that's also the most expensive division. You're talking about guns that are custom built from a gunsmith. They take months, a good while to build. And that division, if you were to get into it, just the guns alone can run you anywhere from $4,000 to maybe $8,000, if not higher.
Wow. Yeah, they're serious.
It depends on, yes, sir. It's just when it comes down to USPSA, that's why I like to tell people when they come, check out, talk to people, and see what division you might feel like you want to shoot in, and then when you go home, do your research. Okay, this is what gun I want to shoot, and then you can build your kit off that.
Yeah.
Because when you're there, each stage has a stage layout, and there's a graph of it, and you read the stage brief, or someone will read it, and then you get a certain amount of time to walk the stage. And it's all there's so many people design these stages. They're not just randomly generated. These people take their time, and they design these stages with cover, with sometimes you have to get on your knees. Sometimes you have to lean us all the way for certain targets. There's still poppers. There's a target that we use at the sectional match, and sometimes at local matches. It's called a holy monkey. Now that target's fun because when you activate it, it never acts the same way twice.
Yeah.
So it's always different.
Yeah. So. Well, all good information. And if you'd like additional information about this, just go to their website. They have a great website, uspsa.org. uspsa.org. You can just click on Find a Club and find some of the local area clubs that Doug mentioned earlier. Doug, appreciate your time today, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That's it for this special weekend edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.